Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 195, part A. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge in the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, part A. You gotta be kidding. I thought we weren't doing this again. So says the Sensei of the Whatnot, Segulin. You were just thinking that. The reason why we're doing this is we've got a two-part recording that we did with Freddie E. II, and it's honestly, it's a survival thing for me at the moment because we just got done recording our next episode with Myron Rumsey, our second part of our Blackest Night show. We've got this recording with Freddie, and I want to get the first half of it out tonight because this is January 18th. It's actually the anniversary of 3 years of Freddie Williams II leaving his job at Hallmark and coming to DC. And so we wanted to get this out and started tonight. We had a natural split in our conversation where we took a break. So that's where I'm splitting the show, the episode. But seeing as it's the same episode, I'm going to split it into two parts. So we got this part today, and later on the week I'll release the second part, and that's why I'm doing it. So actually there is a rhyme and a reason, a rational part of it.
Hold on, I completely understood what you're going with. I was just laughing, though, when you're saying 195, and you said exactly what was going through my head. I was just like, okay.
I'm more rationalizing it for the listeners. I know you understand why. I wanted them to know why I'm in fact doing this. It really is. We're right now, it's almost 5 o'clock. We just got done recording. I haven't even started editing the actual episode with Freddie Williams II together yet. So I'm just being realistic, and I want this out tonight. So that's why we're doing this, and thank you for your patience. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Jim, before we go into our DCB service and InStockTrades.com ad, I want to shout out, we're going to be this week, and it'll be on the second part of this, announcing a contest that we are doing with friend of the show, David Barron. In order to participate in this contest, you have to do two things. It's open to anybody who's already done this and is going to do this. You have to follow David Barron's blog and David Barron's Twitter page. And whether you participate in Twitter or not, all you got to do is sign up, start up your own Twitter account, follow David Barron. You don't have to post anything on Twitter to do that. You're just following David Barron's Twitter. You're following his blog. Follow those two things. There is going to be a contest prize that we're going to be doing every month for the next couple months, revolving around David Barron's blog and Twitter. But the only way to enter is to follow both of those. There will be links to both of those in our show notes. I will also this week on our website put specific instructions to follow the blog if you don't know how to do that. So that'll be something to do. If you follow both, it's 2 entries. If you only follow one, it's 1 entry. So you're better off following both. Make sure to follow the Twitter and to follow the blog. Official details on the prize will be revealed on part 2 of this episode. So, and also be posted on the website with the information that I mentioned before. So this is a great chance to start entering now. Free prize is always a good thing. And I want to thank colorist and friend of the show, David Barron, for this wonderful idea and encourage all of you to please follow his work. It's very cool. Seeing this is a bonus episode this week, I just want to give a quick shout out to our regular sponsors, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your pre-order source. If you aren't pre-ordering through DCBService.com, do yourself a favor. Check out the incredible savings you can get from DCBService.com. InStockTrades.com, our Rage of the Month, which is going to be at the end of this month. We're going to be recording that. JLA Avengers. Be sure to be checking that out over at InStockTrades.com. I want to thank them both for their continued sponsorship in this show. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Without further ado, let's join Freddie E. Williams II.
Hold on. With further ado, one quick second, Sean. Let me just say, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, Dr. Norge, happy birthday to you.
And to Freddie.
And to Freddie.
Well, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to
yeah,
me. And I sang to Freddie, so I have to sing to you.
Yeah, I forgot about that, because it's my birthday's technically tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not technically, it is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow.
So, yeah, thanks, pal.
Holy caffeine!
Joining us for this very special segment is longtime friend of the show, Freddie E. Williams II. And Freddie, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on.
It's January 18th. This is a very special day for you because you said it was the 3-year anniversary of your time leaving Hallmark to then become exclusive DC artist, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's January 18th marks the 3-year anniversary of me leaving Hallmark to be a full-time comic book guy, which is, to me in my mind, there's a landmark of me getting the call from DC to start work on, finishing up Seven Soldiers, Mr. Miracle. This landmark was when I was offered Robin, then the exclusive, and then whenever I left Hallmark, because there was an overlap there of about a whole year that I was working full-time at Hallmark and working basically a full-time job drawing comics. Most of the time it was Robin. So when I finally, in quotes, made the plunge to fully leave Hallmark and then be just a freelance guy working from home, that was a very scary endeavor. It was a very scary feeling. Kiki was on board with it. We had talked about it for a long time. Even when you have a contract with DC, like an exclusive contract, there's a certain amount of work. I mean, everyone can negotiate, other people's exclusives might be different, but for mine, there's a certain amount of guaranteed work. But usually I go well past that over the course of a year. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's still risk, even if you have an exclusive. And so far, everything's worked out really well. And I hope that things continue to be that way. It was just a total shock that it is actually coming up on 3 years. It feels more like it's been about 8 months, 9 months or something since I've left Hallmark. So, because almost every day is the same. Just you get up and work, you can work your own schedule. You can work any period of 15 hours you want, every day basically. Get up whenever you want to or whatever. But anyway, yeah, it's 3 years, and I'm very excited and feel really fortunate for that.
How did you pull off that schedule of working on a book like Robin while doing Hallmark as well? That had to have been nuts.
Yeah, it was. And the way that I pulled it off was I had very, very little sleep, and I'm not exaggerating, about 4 hours of sleep a night. I didn't have any time to experiment with the artwork. It was just, I wouldn't even say the word hacked, because I actually felt enthusiasm for it. I think that part of what might qualify for hacked work would be when you're just trying to get it, out the door no matter the cost, and you don't care, you're just, slapping it together. And that was not my experience with Robin, even the first few issues that were the hardest there. It was sacrificing everything else in my life that didn't absolutely have to be, taken care of or satisfied or something. Kiki was a huge help in that and still is, but especially back then when basically she had to do everything. She had to pick up all the slack. So any family functions or shopping or any cleaning or meals, and she did, assist for me on, she would scan stuff in or fill in blacks on the pages that I would do in the hybrid way that still leaves an original at the end. It was very stressful, and I used every single sick day and vacation day at Hallmark that I could possibly muster so I could work. And I remember one of those, over the course of that year, it was a leap year or something, and I remember that leap year is what allowed me to hit my deadline, because it was just that extra day in the month, if that makes sense. That because I effectively had, I was just like, oh God, thank God that there's it's a leap year. It was really difficult. And now, I mean, whether the artwork is better or not to an outside perspective or something, I feel like I know that I'm experimenting with it more, and I feel better about it in general. And it's definitely not perfect, and there's every time I look back at an issue once it's finally printed, which is always a couple month lag there, I always notice a bunch of stuff that I wish I could have changed and stuff. But the point is that back then I had no room for experimentation, no room really to sleep, and it was very stressful. So
you kind of answered my other question there, because I was going to lead into that with, how does this change since you've left Hallmark? And it really is kind of your ability to kind of really perfect your craft and really experiment, and all that has been where, because I mean, we've seen that as readers.
Yeah, you've gotten to flex your muscle, your creativity muscle, if you will, on, especially we saw stuff with the Flash, stuff you currently got going on with JSA. When you came back to Robin, some of that stuff was just amazing when you came back. So that was just a cool visual treat. So I can imagine it was probably, I don't want to say more satisfying, because it was probably, I can imagine throughout the whole process was good, but you really got a chance once you had your exclusivity just to say, bam, this is who I am, this is what I do, bam, attack at it.
Yeah, and I think it's still what you were going to ask, Sean, about, how has things changed. I mean, it is just what, Jim just said, as far as being able to try to make more of an artistic statement, or at least a more well thought out one or something. I remember reading a quote by Brandon Peterson, because he works digital. I don't know if he uses the same techniques I do, but I know he uses some 3D stuff and that he uses Photoshop. But other than that, in an interview, I think it was when he was working on the Ultimate Vision or something, he was saying something like he thought with all these different or advanced techniques that it was going to make things faster, but he still always seems to find a way for it to take up the same amount of time or more time or something. And I've started to experience that over, and I don't know if because it's both a good and a bad thing, but before I left Hallmark, what I thought was that I was going to just have all this free time when I was no longer working there. That's not true. I'm able to get extra sleep. I mean, my average is probably about 6 to 7 hours or something now, but that's just me. I do tend to find ways to soak up that time. So the time that I thought I would basically work at almost the same speed and then have all this time that I could go gallivanting and skipping through the poppy fields or whatever, I don't know. And not even necessarily the poppy fields. I don't know, a park or something. A poppy field sounds funny, but I guess the Wizard of Oz popped in my head. But anyway, instead it's been where I would find time with altering layouts and spend more time in the plotting out of the storytelling and that sort of thing. So, and aside from that, being able to pick a little bit more on my own schedule, like I was saying, work any 15 hours a day that you want to. I mean, there's several times in a week or something that we'll just look at each other and be like, so you want to watch Harry Potter today? And we'll just watch a whole marathon of Harry Potter while we're working, or whatever, The Matrix or Star Wars or something. So that's an incredible amount of freedom in that respect. So stuff like that.
Well, I do want to say one thing for you, Freddie, there. Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. If I didn't sing that, there would have been people complaining. I know.
Who do you think these people are?
I have people who love my singing.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Everybody encourages you.
See, Freddie loved it.
Freddie, one of the things, I exchanged an email with you this week about JSA All Stars #2. One of the things I've been really trying hard to do as a fan, I don't have an artistic background other than I love reading comics. I love the artwork in comics. And I've been really trying over the last year to just to get more of an eye, I think, for the different layers that go into it, because there's a ton of work that goes into producing these books in the course of a month. And that's one of the things I love about rereading comics now, looking at them multiple times, is really just kind of appreciating the art and various effort. I emailed you because I loved the cover of issue 2, and one of the things that really popped out at me was the color work. It reminded me a lot of some of the things I got to see in that Robin backup that you had done. And so I emailed you because I didn't want to do it on the show. I didn't want to sound like a dunce on the show, because I know I don't have, I don't have an artistic background. So I'm like, if I'm really messing up on this, but so I emailed you and said, did you do the colors on the cover? Because that's what I was thinking of when I saw them. You did. And I mean, how much time does it take you to put together a cover like this versus a page, for example? Because a lot of care goes into the color work that you do. You've got your own style. And I love the interior colors by the Hories, so I'm not taking anything away from them at all. I don't mean it that way. But one of the things that I really appreciated was I like the sharp cover distinction. We go into the book, we get some sharp colors in there. But it was something, I did notice your style here. And I thought it was very cool. But how much time for you as an artist does it take to do a cover like this versus a page where you would be doing a similar splash?
I mean, it definitely takes more time, even if I was just doing the black and white stuff, because I do anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 layout ideas for a cover. That's not unique to me. That's pretty common for a cover artist to do that. And then whenever I'm working where I'm going to color myself, I will set the Photoshop files up a little differently than if I were doing it for the Hories or another colorist to work on. And it's not that setup time takes a lot longer, but it's a little bit longer, but it does save me time when it comes time to do the colors. As far as hours or breaking it down into that sort of a time allotment, a normal page, I'll do about just over a page a day. I used to do like a page and a half a day, but because I've been slowing down and it's a team book and stuff, I'll do about a page to a little bit more than that a day, depending on the complexity. I think it takes me probably 3 days to do a penciled, inked, and colored cover, and that's with the extra layouts, but then that's also with Kiki doing my flats for me. Kiki has is pretty good in Photoshop, so instead of sending it to an outside flatter, because I want my flats to be a little bit different, it's not the same way that a lot of other people would do it. I just showed her what I wanted, and then she's been doing my flats. So that does save me time. So even with that time saving, it probably takes me about 3 days to do a cover, and that's through colors. And I have a tendency to kind of, I don't know about over-render, but to just keep layering stuff on in the colors, and I know that that's like the last time I'll get to touch it, and so I keep tweaking it over and over, and I'm a little OCD, I think, on it.
Quick comment, I just want to let you know how much I love your renditions of Cyclone. Absolutely think she's just wonderful what you're doing with Maxine. And like on that first issue, the first cover, that was first exposure, seeing that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool. Just she has her half face going, and just the way you draw her. I just really just had to. There's a couple points in time in this issue where I was getting ready to gush, but I figured I'll just do a quick gush right now, just because you keep that innocence that is just so wonderful about her. She's this innocent kid, but there are times when she is, throwing down. In the first issue where she's like, we're not playing, we're the All Stars, and she's got like a determination look, but she hasn't lost that childlike innocence. And there's just a couple times where I was just like, wow, this is cool. This is so. Had to have a geek gushing moment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Matt Sturgis, the writer, he and I we both talked about how to handle Cyclone, because she's actually not the youngest member. I guess Stargirl is, but I think that Stargirl plays to be a little bit more mature, or her character is a little bit more mature and stuff. Cyclone, to me, feels like kind of like a fangirl who gets to act out the part. Not that she's not a real hero, but I don't think the gravity of it always sinks in, and that's one of the developments of her character as time goes on and stuff. But thank you. And I try to make her act, body language and stuff to be different than the other females of the team, just to make sure. I like drawing her quite a bit, so I like the freckles for some reason, and so I enjoy drawing those, although there hasn't been a whole lot. The story, well, I guess you've only seen issue 2. I'm working on issue 4 now, but her stuff doesn't come up for a couple of issues, like where we zoom in more on her. So, but I do enjoy drawing her, though.
In college, I had a friend who was a theater geek. She was into the whole the theater scene at BG, and she so reminds me of her, just that same style. My friend wasn't a redhead, but but just that personality, and I can actually I hear her voice coming from her, and it was one of those just personal connections that I had. So it was just kind of a cool thing. Like, yeah, okay, I can see her doing. Oh, this is kind of neat. So.
That's funny. Yes, some of the visuals her body language is based on someone who I knew in theater when I was in high school. So maybe there's I'm connecting to you on that unconscious or subconscious level or something.
One of the things that I've liked in this book has been, when you were talking about Maxine and Stargirl, is the exploration of the difference in maturity. Not so much age, as far as Stargirl's a much more experienced hero than Cyclone. And I love how that's been playing off in this book, even in the way that Stargirl carries herself. I've noticed the slight visual differences, that she carries herself with a little bit more confidence. And like Jim was pointing out before, there's more of a fun factor to Cyclone, because she is, she's new to this, and she's got that wide-eyed kind of like, hey, wow, this is the coolest thing in the world. I'm a hero out there, and it's a very different. Whereas Stargirl's seen a lot of difficult situations, and she's run with the legacy heroes. I love how. And it's very tough for creative teams to come onto something as established as Justice Society has been, and to try and do something different while at the same time keeping it linked to what was done in the past. And it's funny, when the book split is when, for me, that started to click, because we have the JSA book, which is so steeped in the legacy aspect, but then real reasons for why this team exists. And I'm loving the distinctions of Power Girl's like kind of my focus point right now, because she's the one that is so much steeped into the history of the JSA, and her relationship with Magog has been stuff that I've been really into. But I've got to commend you guys on just the maturity aspect of what you've been doing with Cyclone and Stargirl, because that's something for me. Stargirl's a very important character to me, and I think you guys are nailing her. And it's just such a great way to handle this character, and she feels like a lot more mature than her age.
Good, cool. There's a lot of weight on her shoulders, so, and hopefully that came through or started out in the first issue and stuff. So I think she's a real interesting character. It's good to see that sort of a growth or whatever, because sometimes you don't always get that with big, mature, established characters because they've already kind of gone through that growth, and they should still grow, but the greatest amount of growth will be kind of at this age or this level of experience.
When we kicked into issue 2, one of the things that I liked, and it's kind of a question I had for you, one of the things we liked about Run, back when you guys were doing that together, was the progressive battle damage of...
Oh, you guys liked Run? I thought you deleted that episode.
We loved Run. We loved it so much that we actually went back and did another episode about it.
Yeah, I know.
But one of the things that I noticed about Power Girl right away is it carried over from the last issue. And I actually went back and looked at the last issue. I'm like, wow, this is like picking up right where she left off damage-wise, which was great to see because it was this sense of no time has passed. We're really picking up in the next segment with her. She's still searching for Stargirl because it wouldn't make sense if they're searching for one of their teammates for her to go and change costumes and fix all that up because of how dire the situation is. But one of the things, as I'm looking across this first page, one of the things I liked, it's very introspective with her. And I needed at this point to see how she was feeling about this team split, her role in it, because she was the chairman of the Justice Society. She was in charge of everything, and everything has changed so much. And this is the issue where we finally get to see how she's been feeling about all this. And I wanted this so bad, and it's great to see visually that this is something weighing on her. And it does lead to some great events later on in the issue with her and Magog. But I love the various close-up shots of her face where we get to see really just what this, not just what Stargirl's doing to her, but all of that. And like I said, the progressive battle damage was something that, I don't know, tiny details mean so much to me now. And I look for those things because I know it's something that, for all of you, takes a little bit extra time to make sure you get them just right. And it's something that I've come to really appreciate, those fine details like that. And I really liked seeing the battle damage on her costume with the torn up glove and the cape damage and stuff like that really carried over from the last battle, and that it logically made sense from where she was at. So I just wanted to... What do you do as a artist to maintain that?
I guess it's to make sure you reference yourself from the previous issue. And I have been... Sometimes it would be easy for me in the way that I work to actually miss some of that stuff. There's a lot of advantages to the way that I work, but one disadvantage is that I like to work in big batches of pages, so I actually like to do the roughs. If I have my choice and there's enough time in the deadline, I like to work where I do all the roughs for the whole issue, all the wireframes, and then all the inks at the end. And then go to an entirely new issue. So that then there's like a whole week or so of me working on the roughs for like issue 2, and then when I start to go do the wireframes, it would have been easy for me to have forgotten where, the damage was on her costume or something like that, because there was a note basically in the script from Matt Sturgis that said, I don't know if it said the same battle damage, but he said this picks up right where the first issue left off, and everyone's standing in the same place at least when Power Girl lands and stuff. So then I just tried to match the scene with the previous one. And also Matt I actually collaborate more with Matt than I have with any other writer that I've worked with, at least at DC and stuff. Jim Mitchell, who I worked on with Chance of a Lifetime, I've collaborated with a ton. But anyway, Matt Sturgis and I would speak on the phone. We speak on the phone at least once a week or something, and we just talked about how conscious we are of when this gets turned into the trade, the transition between issues and that sort of thing. So sometimes it will skip days or something like that, but here we wanted it basically, you're just flipping right through the trade and you might not even realize it's the beginning and end of a scene, that sort of thing.
I liked the intensity because it added to me, and it was, like you said, I have no problem with times where it jumps, because naturally sometimes between issues it would jump time time-wise, and that's fine. In this particular case, it added to more of this sense of urgency. Intensity is probably not the word. Urgency is more the word I was looking for as far as looking for Stargirl. And I like that, because you want to feel like, especially with Power Girl, they have a longer history together than really anybody on the team has with Stargirl. And it was great to kind of start off right away with her building this sense of urgency. It made sense. What is it like to work with this size of a cast of characters? Because you're dealing with, 10 characters now? Which, I mean, that's something where I was like, wow, this is really... I honestly, I've appreciated it. I shared with you in an email. My wife lives with a comic book fan. So I am probably the biggest turnoff on the planet to reading comics, and I've got to admit it, because I do a podcast and all this stuff. So, but I tend to at nighttime before I go to bed, I'll read to kind of go to sleep, and I've always got comic books out there. Well, they ran the JSA All Stars preview pages in the back of all the issues. The double-page spread from that first issue that had the whole team showcased there with the names and everything like that. She doesn't do this very often at all, where she actually will stop whatever, because she reads novels and stuff like that when we're sitting there. She actually stopped what she was doing and started asking me questions about the characters, started pointing out things that she thought was cool about the character costumes and the artwork and stuff like that. And I just, I wouldn't even bother mentioning this if it wasn't relevant. I thought it was so cool that she was so drawn into the sheer number of characters, but that was kind of what made me notice. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got a insane cast to deal with here. How is that a switch for you in the way you work compared to working on Robin, the Flash Run, for example, where you've got a more contained cast of characters?
Yeah, my only real experience with a team book, or kind of a team book, was issues at the end of issue 2 of Run through issue 3.5 or something, because there was I can't remember their name, but General Immortus, has all of the Condiment King and the Seductress and all those, Arachnid and all those, or Brown Recluse, I guess is his name, has all of them kind of as a team, and Mike, the Human Flame, enters that group, and so it's a bit of a team book. But this was, most blunt terms, it's very difficult, at least for me, to coordinate all the characters, and especially that first issue, because I was trying really hard to make it all cool and stuff, and there was so much happening, and part of that was my fault. I mean, I would never try to blame this on Matt Sturgis, the writer, because he had a pretty big opening, and then I kept trying to add. We talked on the phone, and I was like, but what if there's a bunch of mercenary? I was like, because I think he had some mercenaries, but I wanted him to have tanks, and I wanted them big collateral damage, and I'm not sure who suggested that it be in downtown New York or something. By the end of us discussing it, I thought, wow, that's going to be so cool, because I was thinking of it more of a reader or something, and then when I went to go draw it, I was like, what was I thinking? Why did I say that stuff? Because Matt was basically like, you asked for it, you got it. And that was pretty difficult. I mean, it was difficult and time consuming, and I had taken on a lot of work right before I had started on JSA All Stars #1. I was finishing up Run and finishing up a bunch of commissions before I went there, and then I did this, I don't think it's been advertised yet, but a pop-up sort of book for DC licensing, working with John Morgan, who's the editor of the How To book and stuff, so we're friends, and he asked me to do this, and it's a much more complex, more time-consuming job than I thought it was going to be. I mean, the point of all that is to get to where I just didn't know. I had totally overbooked myself. So I kind of had to go back into that mindset of back when I was working at Hallmark, where I was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night and then working the entire rest of the time, and on characters I was not used to drawing, and the complexity levels I just kept adding. There was just so much happening. So when I look back at it, and I felt so bad for the coloring team, the Hories. They're really nice, and we're friends and stuff, and we were talking on the phone, and Tanya had said basically how much time it had taken them, and that it was 2 to 3 times the amount of time it would have taken them to color a normal book. And oh man, that first issue. I mean, I hope that in 2 years or something, when I look back at it, that I don't remember any of that stuff. I mean, I'm sure I will, but I'm hoping that I'll just hopefully be happy with the end result, and maybe we all did a good job. But at the time, it was really stressful, and I guess I felt kind of like I was in over my head. However, after that, I was talking to Mike Carlin, the editor on the book, who's a really nice guy. I mean, he's just really cool. But we were talking about it, and I was kind of telling him the same stuff I just said to you guys. And he said that, of course, it's going to be like that for the first issue. And if there is an issue that you kind of go, in quotes, overboard, because I feel like I might maybe went a little overboard on some of the stuff, but in good ways, hopefully, you would want to do that on the first issue. And that although the other issues want to be good, they won't always require that. You're not trying to give equal screen time to everyone. They don't always have to be in a team and always in downtown New York fighting guys in tanks with, it was just the craziness of it. So anyway, even since then, I mean, I've gotten more familiar with drawing the characters, so that has made things speed up. So I don't have to constantly check reference. That does slow things down. It's still a pretty big undertaking. I mean, as we speak, I'm working on, you guys can see me because I'm on Skype, but I'm actually working on page 8 of issue 4, and there's just the previous page, this, and at least 2 or 3 more pages. It's just, a real big battle with way more characters than that are, it's the JSA All Stars and a bad guy team and a couple of other guys, and then this big thing happened in the background, so... Anyway, I guess it comes and goes in waves, Now,
here's my question. One of the things that I've enjoyed about following your artwork is you've gotten to know, like, Robin, obviously, and we got to see that growth as fans and enjoying your work, kind of got to see that progression for you of getting to know the character, developing your own flavor and style for how you're doing him and how you're portraying his emotion, expression, how he moves, how he fights. Same thing with The Flash. The Flash is a great study in watching you grow with a completely different style of character. Because Flash, his universe, very different than dealing with Robin. And we got to see, by the end of your run on The Flash, just a really cool progression with how you really wanted to present The Flash. With a team book, are there characters that you've already felt yourself latching onto? Or do you kind of look at it globally? How does that work for you as an artist? Are there ones you're just kind of like, wow, this is one I'm really connecting with right now, and I kind of want to work on that and expand that? Or how does that work? Does it work differently?
It works in both ways. It works on a specific level because if Matt Sturgis has written in the script that I'm, mainly dealing with Power Girl or whoever, then I'm spending more time with that character than someone like Judo Master or something. So I do feel like I know more about Power Girl, or I've gotten inside of her head a little bit more or something. I think that it's also, as compared to Robin or working on Robin, if you were to focus all of your energy at a small point, you drill through something a lot faster because you're focusing on just one point. Whereas if you're trying to shove an entire block or something, if you were picturing like a big block of wood trying to be pushed through sand or something, as opposed to a small drill point or something, it's going to take longer to do that. So I feel like I'm getting to know each character a little slower, but I am getting to know them. It just depends on the amount of time I'm spending with them, I guess. So I feel like a virtual stranger with Judo Master, which I just got through drawing or whatever, but a character like Stargirl and Cyclone and Power Girl, and also a little bit with Magog, although he's so hard to draw that I feel like I want to tell him to start, like, simplify your costume, buddy,
It's got too much bling.
So much going on. Yeah.
As we go on with the issue, we got that whole Stargirl where they first show her all tied up and all that, and I loved just the progression of her facial expression on that one page. She's first starting off, she's like, hey, what's going on here? Then she hears the battle outside, she kind of gets it, you're about to get messed up, look. And then when she starts hearing the screams of death, she realizes that's not the JSA. What's going on here? You get that from that ha-ha moment, kind of shifting to a little bit of concern and or horror, kind of, the destruction. That, stuff like that, just in the one-page sweep-through, I love that kind of detail work. 'Cause that's one of the things I know you as, is a detailed artist. And I like looking at the backgrounds and the surrounds, the facial expressions when you're doing it. That, for me, was just a cool flow-through, man.
Cool, thank you. That was a real chance to start, to try to do some acting, so to speak, through the character. And and hopefully some cool set design or whatever with the shadows. So, that's a good example of zooming in on one character and dealing with them and their personality or them and their situation. So that was pretty fun. So I'm glad it came off as that, and that was definitely how it was written too. So I'm glad I was able to pull that off.
Continuing on with that beautiful 2-page spread of the Injustice Society showing up. That was another, I was sitting there, I'm just looking at, I did the initial read of what was going on, and then I just started taking just the little pieces, like, oh man, like the fragments of the glass areas, some of the busted up concrete, some of, the dead guys lying around.
My favorite part of that spread is that Tigress is like walking or kind of running on the bodies of the people who are, of the soldiers. That to me was my favorite part of it, just because I thought that was, I don't know. I mean, I guess if they're, she doesn't care because she's a villain, but I thought it was just funny.
It fits who she is, and just kind of, I could see, this is a hardened female who is not only battle tested, a little bit of the evil side, a little bit of the no conscience kind of side. So yeah, she's going to have little to no respect for the dead bodies she just slaughtered. So it really
it wasn't her that slaughtered them.
Well, it was
Sorrow.
Right, but yeah.
Well, that's honestly,
but whatever.
That's one of the things actually I want to compliment, and I didn't mean to cut you guys off on this. It's actually one of the things I want to further compliment the art. As a longtime fan of, I adore the JSA. I go back to All Star Squadron and Finney Inc. days, straight on through to the series. So this was one when anytime the creative team is going to change on a book that you've loved for so long, you get a little worried. Mm-hmm. When I start hearing who the creative team is, I've loved Fables with Willingham and Sturgis, and we've seen them work with large casts of characters. Then finally we found out that you were going to be doing art on All Stars, and we've started to see more and more links back to the original JSA. And that's not to say that you can't do new things. I don't mean it that way, but I want to see a little bit of mix of both. This is it with Johnny Sorrow, the artwork right there where you nailed what he does to people. And I love, you just see because it's not just dead bodies. In the face, you can see that dude's mask.
In the
face. Because, Johnny Sorrow is an in-your-face kind of guy. And that visually was something where when you see a distinction in the victims over what was done to them, I think it's good for new fans to get kind of a vibe. If you've never seen Johnny Sorrow before, this is kind of you're gradually picking up through the artwork what he does. But for me as a longtime fan, I like immediately jumped on that. Oh, look what Johnny did!
See, that's the thing with me, because I don't have this background, so I kept asking myself, "Who's Johnny?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Who's Johnny?" They say. Doing my little happy dance now, by the way.
This is going to be on your demo reel for like a singing audition or something, because you got 2 songs mixed into this one.
Yeah.
He doesn't know I edit all that out.
I don't think you should edit it, or if you do, put them all into one long video and have it sound like the crazy remix or something.
We got people asking for the best of. There's a fan following of the best of. They want to hear more Whatnot singing.
Well, you can do a whole different podcast for that.
Don't think
Whatnot sings. Yeah.
Hold on, you say that laughing. You don't think I've thought about that?
Wow.
The singing Whatnot.
Yeah.
There you go.
When we flash over to the...
Where do we go from there?
How about the ranch? You know what? Actually, I do want to talk about the ranch and Roxy in particular, because I was glad to see Dad back in, to see the original Hour Man. I thought that was kind of a cool link to the past, too. But also that he is a logical way to bring in these cool little gadgets. I'm a gadget freak. So when you see things like Roxy, I love characters like that in video games. I love characters like the whole hologram thing. It's very today, very modern. And I loved how she started off with, visually, you see her kind of presenting herself like something a little above. It's interesting how you and Matthew Sturgis work very well together, because your artwork, you do a nice job of presenting the dialogue with the art. It matches up. She's carrying herself in a way that matches the little joke she's playing on the whole team, which I think is fantastic.
That was awesome, man.
It's a Terminator moment.
Yeah. Hello, mortal creatures. I have achieved total sentience. In 40 seconds, I will have taken control of your world's nuclear weapons. Within 8 hours, I will now annihilate all human race. Your world is mine now. And it's just that, oh hell, kind of look on their faces, and it was just, I knew it was a joke. but it was still just wonderfully told joke, and I was laughing along with it. And I just the final couple panels, and even follow through the next couple pages when Our Man's talking to his dad. Hey, we okay here? Yeah. And this was a art selling the dialogue moment. So this was as Sean said, you guys really connected on these couple pages. It's a really fun read.
Great. Thank you.
Do you approach a character that you know is going to be kind of transparent or faded in a different way than you would a character that you know is going to be very solid when you're doing the initial drawing? Or is that something you do afterwards? How do you deal with a character like Roxy? Because I'm looking at her and I'm like, I was wondering if there was any difference on your end to approaching her because of that.
There's a slight difference. It's actually a little easier to draw them just in that I don't have to ink them as much because they're not supposed to have actual shadows on them or something. You kind of outline where an indication of a contour or a shadow. But the way that I work in show and the DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics is when I'm drawing wireframes, the structure drawings of people, the background is basically in its entirety. So I'll create or draw a background in its entirety, and then so the figure exists on top of it, kind of like a cell animation or an animation cell is what I should have said. In that same panel that you can see Our Man or see Magog or something, they are a background exists behind them as well. So it's not like it costs me any more work whenever I'm drawing a transparent figure. The only difference is probably it's easier when I'm inking, but then it's a little bit harder whenever I'm doing the file setup to give to the Hories, just because I'll hand them, or not hand them, but I'll upload to the FTP a layered TIFF file that has all of the background, regular inks on the bottom layer, and then anything that's special or special effects or that needs to have a color hold where it needs to the line art needs to be changed to a different color will be on layers above that. So Roxy ended up getting her own layers above that, I guess. So there was additional stuff to separate, but that really wasn't that big of a deal. So it's not a huge deal, except for, you want to make sure the opacity doesn't get too low, because then it looks real confusing. And if it gets too high, it might be hard to read. But, that's really, you kind of learn to do that the first couple times you mess with it. So it's no big deal.
I like the static effect on her leg.
How it's waving in and out?
Yeah, I think that's really, because that, again, adds the whole feeling that she's something, I don't want to say, well, I guess I would say digital. She is a digital construct that's visibly in front of real people. And I love that aspect of it, because it reminds me of like Halo, like Cortana and stuff like that. I dig that kind of character. They're always interesting. So,
cool. I think I used the inspiration of, do you guys remember Jim Lee's original Wildcat run, the character Void?
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
Yeah. And when she would teleport or go through time or something, she would have that sort of a displacement wave at her feet or legs or something. And so you could say that I was paying homage to Jim Lee, or just that I was stealing from him. Just straight up stealing that effect. I don't know.
Well, homage works because it's different.
Well, and also by admitting it here, it's no longer stealing. So now it's an homage.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
I do think it's an homage, too, because you've taken that concept, and it's a very different style of character, too. It's kind of cool.
Cool.
I like this.
Yeah, and it was written like that in the script. I mean, not that she was breaking up whenever she moved or something. I just had a picture in my mind of like maybe later on it won't move or won't get those displacement waves if Rex, who is the Golden Age Our Man, if he's had the chance to perfect the holographic technology. But I was picturing that since he just put it online, that it wouldn't be perfected yet. Her intelligence would be intact, but maybe not the display of it or something. So that was what I had in mind. And I mean, I don't know if we'll move past that or something. She appears in the next couple of issues, but it's not like she's doing a lot of movement. So in the script, he described her pretty, not necessarily what she was wearing, but like her sassiness and so her personality. So I've seen some in other conversations I've had online and stuff. It seems like she was a character that people liked. So that was cool.
One of the panels that I got a real chuckle out of, and one of the things I love Sturgis's work on Jack of Fables, his comedic timing. And without going too far, I think that's really hard to do, to be able to tell some tongue-in-cheek jokes in a story and not take you out of the mood and presentation. Because, like, we've got a situation where they're, searching for Stargirl. And I loved this bit with Our Man and his son, both of the Our Men there, where, she's going through and basically putting together all the pieces of the puzzle as she sees them. And in the background, she's not going to get us killed, is she? No way, son, your old man still got it. But I love visually how they're just kind of in the back. He's in the back looking very tentative at her. Yeah. And it was just another one of those pieces where it didn't take me out of the mood and the tone. I got a little chuckle on it. It brought me back in. And I do think it's a strength of Sturgis's writing, is that he's able to do that. And it's something I've really enjoyed in that and House of Mystery. He's a very entertaining writer with this. And you guys, I guess we can ask you this now. Did you know when you were doing Run that you guys were going to be working together on this book, or is that something that came out of Run?
It came out of Run, and from what Matt told me, it kind of came out of him suggesting me. When Mike Carlin was talking to Matt Sturgis about JSA All Stars when it was, brand new and stuff, and he said, do you have any artists that you have worked well with? Or, it was something like that. It was a conversation, something like that. Like, do you have any suggestions to throw in the mix? Matt suggested me, and I don't know if I was already being considered for that or if Matt saying that just put me in their mind, but I know that he did suggest me, and so that was really cool. So, I mean, that has done nothing but improve our relationship, our working relationship together, because it feels good. I mean, there's a certain amount of politeness that even if a writer didn't necessarily enjoy working with me, that they wouldn't be rude about it. They probably just wouldn't say it much, or they would use PC terms and stuff. But when somebody, like when Matt Sturgis recommended me for the job, that actually says that he enjoyed it, or enjoyed our collaboration. So, and it's been great to work together on a long basis, because I know just kind of what he, I am not completely in sync with him, but I'm more in sync with him than just about any other writer I've ever worked with. So he sent me a movie in the mail so that we could basically both watch it and be like, man, wasn't that messed up? And then how can we think of some weird stuff to put into JSA All Stars? It was like a funny, I don't know, that was something that when I was younger and would read stories like that, I mean, because we weren't necessarily hanging out, but we were kind of hanging out on the phone, I guess. And that's the kind of thing that I always thought was cool, like those sort of inside jokes and stories that, a lot of comic books are made where the writer never meets the artist and just turns in a script and says, here you go, and then any answers are fielded by the editor and stuff. But this very much feels like a team collaborative work, and Mike Carlin is really encouraging of that, and he's a part of that team. Definitely, he's highly responsible for establishing that atmosphere of, if Matt and I are cool with something, then he's like, okay, let's do it, so that's all really cool. I can't even remember really the question now, but I just getting off on a tangent on how cool Matt is.
It really was, a lot of what thematically what I was talking about there is the working relationship between the two of you, which I feel as a reader, and I felt it in Run, and it was something we talked about when we chatted about Run, and it's something that's really apparent here between the two of you, just how strong that relationship is. And it's funny, as a kid, I grew up thinking that writers and artists had this great collaborative relationship. They all worked in the bullpen together and all that other stuff. And it was funny as you learn years later how different that was, that it really wasn't, they could be on the other sides of the planet. It wasn't them all working in one place together. So it's not kind of cool. It's really cool, because it does, like when you were talking about your story with him, I'm like, this is taking me back to my childhood, what I thought it was like. And it's kind of cool.
And I thought the same thing. I thought all the comic book writers and artists all hung out all in the same city or the same studio, and that they all played video games and role-playing games together, and they spent, this is before I even thought about like what their marriage life would be, but I thought that they would always spend the night at each other's houses, like a big, like the type of that was what my friends were like. We all spent the night at each other's houses and played role-playing games till the wee hours and that sort of thing. So I just expected it to be like that. And I think that there probably are some studios like that, more or less, but it's not the norm for sure.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to is inevitable, major confrontation between Power Girl and Magog, because we start even seeing just the groundwork being laid when the initial comes out where they're still looking for Power Girl. Roxy's got it located. What'd I say?
Power Girl.
Yeah, so they're looking. Roxy's looking for Stargirl, and you can see even Our Man first throws out, "Hey, maybe we should call the other team." But I was like, "No, this is how we got to do it." And you can just see that command structure. Later on, we'll have a direct confrontation, but it's I like seeing that, and I'm anticipating something of a story growth that I'm looking forward to. That I know has to be happening in the near to distant future. That those two are going to just really butt heads on either just ideology or just something. There's going to be that confrontation. Seeing the passion that is on his face, and then you have the same equal passion that she has, for each of their beliefs, and just it's a cool moment that I'm enjoying the current story, but it's just that anticipation of what's to come is something that's got me really jived into All Stars.
Have you guys seen the cover for issue 3? Like, I don't know how much you look online for stuff like that.
I have not seen it.
Well, it's already out there. I don't know. I mean,
it's on DCComics.com.
Yes, yeah, but it's just a close up of Magog getting punched in the face with Power Girl's fist.
Oh, nice.
So, and that's next issue. So, yeah, the I'm already past X. I'm already working on issue 4, about halfway through it or something, and it is definitely building, and it definitely comes to a head, in issue 3. So, which I think is really, really funny the way it kind of comes up or whatever. And I think it also is addressed in the annual that comes out the same time as issue 3 or 4. I can't remember. So, but yeah, and actually, I mean, at the end of issue 2, I can see, I think Matt did a good job of building the right sort of circumstance for Magog to have perhaps taken a life. He was basically trying to defend trying to defend Cyclone, that, to address maybe how Cyclone feels about it, because I mean, she was the one who was about to die, and then he was trying to protect her. So anyway, I mean, that's how I felt about it.
He has before, but I don't think the members of the JSA have seen that.
Right.
If I remember correctly, seeing him in the past. So I think it's interesting because he's so clearly not the traditional superhero.
He's a Marine.
Oh, yeah.
That's his mindset. And with any of the armed forces, it's if you have to, there's the rules of rules of engagement, rules of war and whatnot. But you do take a life if necessary for the to complete your mission. So it's within there, especially if you are in a hostile combat zone. If you're within a war zone, there's definitely liberties allowed with use of deadly force, and that's I've enjoyed it in his solo series. I'm seeing it here. It's something about who the character is, that he's not just the hero, because there is somewhat of a hero in him. He is the warrior. He is the Marine, and there's he's not wearing BDUs, but he still is that same person. So yeah, I really dig. A lot of the times when you're drawing him, you have that great etching on his face, and just with even with the helmet, because a lot of times the helmet could cover facial expression, you can still see that raw kind of underneath it.
Cool. Yeah, and the helmet does make me have to think of different ways to shoot the character and stuff, because some angles don't work that well because his horns basically would cover most of his face and stuff. So, but yeah, and I read Kingdom Come, and I've read it several times, but whenever I read it the first time, basically because I'm such a huge Superman fan, I and it's not that Magog was being cast in that book. I mean, he has some redemption basically at the end, but I'm talking about of Kingdom Come. He's kind of cast as the man who finally kind of broke Superman of his spirit at the time, and I kind of took issue with that. I felt like somebody was picking on my father or something. I don't know. So I didn't particularly like him at first, but I thought he looked kind of cool. But now I can see where he's coming from, and he's kind of a cool guy. So, I mean, cool visually, and some of the thinking that he has, I can understand where he's coming from. So I think, Matt Sturgis and also Keith Giffen has done I'm talking about in the solo series, that they've done a good job of making him, he's fleshed out a bit. He has some moral gray areas that, they make sense. They're not just forced.
One of the things that I've enjoyed about getting my head around the split, because like I said in the beginning, I'm more of a traditional JSA fan. So it's been interesting. When they first announced that Jeff Johns will be leaving, I was I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. But then Willingham and Sturgis were announced. I'm like, yay, thumbs up. I love them, so this is going to be good. And then they announced the splitting into 2 books, and I'm like, what? But then as it got more fleshed out and we started to see with that arc that there was a logical, philosophical reason why this team would split. And I think that adds more power to his no to contacting them, because he is a major factor in the split. But it is funny, and Jim, it's kind of like a question I have for you. I think it's kind of interesting. Are you more in favor of Magog's approach or Power Girl's? Because there's a philosophical difference between the two. And it's, as a reader, I think depending on who you are as a reader, you might be taking different sides on this type of thing. For me, basically by my statement, I'm obviously very pro Power Girl, and I'm like, she did the right thing. She stopped him, and all that. But then as you guys were talking through the whole, the gun, got fired, and he was doing it to save Cycle and all that, I'm like, I get that. I do get that. And it's one of the things I constantly find myself in the solo series and in this book, both of which I'm loving, wanting to punch Magog. I want to beat him. I want to beat the tar out of him. But that says a lot to what my idea of a hero is. But yet I'm fascinated by him. I'm drawn to him. I wouldn't stop reading either in a million years. I love his solo book. I don't like him. And it's a funny dynamic, but yet I shouldn't say that because I am warming up to him. It's just it's a bizarre relationship that I have with this character. Yeah. It's like a moth to flame kind of thing with him. But Jim, I guess my question is, and I think it'd be interesting because I think you and I have different enough backgrounds that I think I already know what your answer here is. Who are you more in favor of in that? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm guessing that we are. Go ahead.
Well, it really depends on which voice in my head I'm hearing. If I'm hearing the Superman fanboy, the dun da da, I'm all pro Power Girl. But if I'm hearing just the soldier in me, I'm going, you know what, Magog's got a right. He's got a right idea. Now, I'm not as hardcore as Magog is. There's like some people I would say, yes, you need to kill. Icicle, I wouldn't have said that's a kill necessary because, yeah, he's a dangerous person, but he could have taken him down very easily with the staff and not gone lethal. Yeah. Someone like the Joker, take him down. You got to kill him. That's my mindset on that. And then probably in the Johnny Sorrow, too, I'm thinking he's going to be another... There's a level of evil that you should be, you got to take the kill shot. If you're given that shot, you got to take it. So I do sometimes... we are different on our mindset and our logic, but it's not completely. I'm not completely 100% Magog. If he were to go up against Condiment King and kill him, I would be like, dude, come on, I could take Condiment King. You didn't need to kill that guy. So there's the difference. It's the level of threat.
That's where we differ, though. I'm okay with him killing Condiment King. It's protect the Joker. No. It all going off of what you're saying, though. I do think we do have definite philosophical differences there, which I find, and my point with that, and why I think this book is interesting, is because I think depending on who you are and how you read this, you can take a very different stance on who you're siding with. I think there's a deep philosophical development that has occurred before this book was launched and has been really heavily developed in even just the first 2 issues that I find very interesting. And the more that I reread this and I'm wrapping my head around these two, you're seeing the traditional hero trying to rein in, because which it was my question from the first issue is, what is Power Girl's status on this team? And it's pretty spelled out in this issue that she's the team leader, but he's the field leader, which, if I'm reading that right. Mm-hmm. And I like now that we've got really 2 different leaders. They called them Mom and Dad, because the joke wasn't lost to me, and I love that. But it's been something that I've just been starting to eat up as this has been growing. And it was funny how tentative I was as a fan of JSA when this all kicked off, because I'm like, what is this going to feel like and all that. Now, with the 2 books now both been released, that we've got the Justice Society of America book out, we've got this book out, and I get to see more traditional look over in the Justice Society of America. This is now exploring some very different approaches because these are newer heroes mixing with some legacy heroes. It's a real interesting, powerful dynamic there. That's why I wanted to go there, because I think that's a compelling part of this issue.
And also, it's not just I think all heroes across the board should be able to engage lethal force. It's certain heroes. Like, I never want to see Tim Drake take a life because of the Code of the Bat. I never really want to see Batman or Dick Grayson, take a life because of the Code. Superman's another character that, I don't want that. Now, Wonder Woman, the Amazon Code, I would have no issues if she had to take a life again, just because of who she is and her character background, her upbringing, and just that whole kind of, it's, whether you're a pure hero / vigilante type, or whether you're the warrior hero, is the mindset. It's the actions have to fit the character for me. Like Blue Beetle, if he ever killed somebody, if he openly killed somebody because he had to, I would have issues with that unless it really, really, really plagued Jaime big time. Same thing like with Cyclone. If she had to take a life, and it's one of those things where if she took a life accidentally, it would still hurt her just as much as if she had to actually go that extra step for some weird, bizarre reason. It's got to be the character. Action has to fit their personality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that comes down to, it comes down to what direction that you'd want to take the character and that sort of thing, because it would be really interesting to see how a character like Cyclone does handle, if she accidentally killed somebody or something, or just to see where that might go and how it would affect her and stuff. And hopefully it would feel natural, like, there are accidental deaths, and just to see what that would do, I guess, to her. So yeah, and I agree. I don't think it's for everyone, but it is interesting. Without getting into politics or anything like that, I'm very supportive of law enforcement and of the military, the specific individuals in it, soldiers and police officers, because they have such a really difficult job, and it's a job I know that I cannot do. I would be unable to do, and I respect them a lot because of that. And it is sometimes necessary for them to, take lives depending on the situation. I still see them as heroes. I don't see them as, I know that there's a different level, like superheroes are superheroes, so they're above that or something. But, I could see why, just basically that I can identify with the character of Magog, at least in the stance or his viewpoint of killing sometimes. So yeah, and I think a threat like the Joker, who is just, it almost seems irresponsible to have not killed him at this point in some ways, depending on how you look at it.
Where I find this whole Magog thing very interesting is, Magog's a character right in your face that you're like, he's not JSA, he's not traditional JSA.
True.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And they are the JSA All Stars. They are a team that's under the JSA banner, which puts a lot of responsibility on Power Girl. One thing I like is it's something I think as a fan I was concerned about. And I love that right away from the get-go, rather than, like, let's dance around this for a while, it's right in your face. Like, this is what you're concerned about. We get it. So we're going there. And we're gonna deal with this right now. You're gonna see what this is dynamics all like. We're gonna see Magog go there. That's what I'm loving, because these are the things I was concerned about as a reader, and it's right in my face, and I'm seeing it right now, and it's ballsy. It's not dodging it. And I want to see it play out, because it has been, like I said, it has been a concern of mine with finding out that Magog's going to be a leader on this team, and how's that going to work out, because he's not what I would consider a JSA leader, and that to me is compelling to see it being dealt with, and that Power Girl is in a very tough spot, and she is dealing with it, and that is something where issue 1 building into issue 2, I was like, yes, fine, this is what I want to see. Oh, we're getting there. Great.
Well, we see a great just how she's dealing with it when Roxy identifies where they're at, and the team flies over to the bed of evil known as Pittsburgh, where these villains are hiding, and they're holding Stargirl, and you see they're in the middle of their little battle there. Hey, come on, I'm Cleveland. I have to insult Pittsburgh. Even though it is a wonderful city.
It just registered to me what you were saying back then.
It is a wonderful city.
Why is Pittsburgh a bed of evil? I'm like, what are we...
I do love it. There's some great restaurants there, so it's a great place to visit. I'm just glad I don't live there, because there's more bridges there than in the city of Venice. But seriously, though, as we see, because there's the ongoing battle that's going on there between Sorrow's crew and Pemberton. Magog's like, hey, hold back, let them kill each other, we'll mop up the rest. And Power Girl's like, hey, no, one of them could be Stargirl. We got to go in now. And they swoop on in, and it was just a cool her using what they're doing, using the mission in a way against him, to defeat his own ideology. Now, question for you, Freddie, and saw with like the swooshing type of art deal when Power Girl was falling around, but also whenever Cyclone's carrying the team in the individual whirlwinds, the little vortexes of whatnot. I'm wondering now, is that like more of the coloring because it's the white swirling in there? Is it penciling, inking? That's the kind of thing I was wondering. Or is it similar to what you did with Roxy?
Yeah, it is similar to what I did with Roxy as far as... it's probably about 50-50 because the Horis do a really good job of elaborating or exaggerating the effect. I basically just draw the whirlwind shapes as solid... I draw the whirlwinds as solid shapes, and then whenever I go to upload that file to the Horis to color, then I'll put that on its own layer and that sort of thing so that it's easy for them to color hold, which is to make it a lighter blue color, and then they on top of that add a bunch of other coloring that makes it look more swirly. So yeah, it's I think they do a good job with it. I'm not sure exactly how they handle it after I give it to them, but they might even use some sort of a texture pattern or something, but I'm not sure.
Does it help? I know we've discussed this in the past, but does it help knowing the colorists, like the Horis, knowing what they're going to do and what their end product looks like when you're creating the work? Do you like react a certain way, or do you do things differently, or is it business as usual? Because we talked about this way back when we first talked to you ages ago. Does knowing the colorists on the book make a difference to how you approach your end of it?
It's a huge benefit to know the colorists and to know their style of coloring and stuff. The reason is because imagine if... my artwork doesn't have cross-hatching, but let's just say it did. And cross-hatching, for anyone who's not familiar with that term, is just lines to indicate a gray area between black and white. It's used, sometimes as like a kind of a checkerboard pattern or whatever to create some gradation. Well, if you're producing work and you don't know who the colorist is, sometimes you have to ink the pages in a, in quotes, safe way where you're basically covering all... It's not necessarily a negative thing, but you're taking some of the control away from the colorists to kind of protect yourself. And what that involves is just you're creating your own gradations to make sure that you're getting the shadows and highlights in a way that you want them to be displayed. If you know the colorist and know what to expect, then you know what to leave, in quotes, open. Open just means you leave it completely without any detail because you know that they'll handle it. So an example would be kind of in those whirlwinds, I know how much detail to indicate, and I'm basically, more than anything, indicating the shape and then the overall direction of the swirl so that they can go in and do whatever they do to flesh out the rest of the swirl. So it's a really big help. And you know how much detail to put in close-ups and how much you can blow out the highlights where you don't put any detail in an area, but that the colorist can still, in quotes, model that area, which is where they know the contours of the face, so they know what would receive what sort of shapes that would exist in the shadows.
That's really cool, because it's funny. You have a similar relationship with the Horis then that Matthew Sturgis has with you, and it's funny how that all kind of comes together. And it's one of the reasons why I think I'm just liking this book so much, is it just feels very much like a team effort where everybody seems to be on the same page, because it comes out with an end product that way.
Yeah, it's kind of
very much so. Yeah, I am very fortunate to have worked with them. I worked with them on The Flash for all but one issue, or maybe they did do all the issues. I can't remember. And then worked with them on Final Crisis Aftermath run, and then on this as well. So yeah, we've worked together quite a bit. They're really nice people too. We chat every once in a while. We'll just talk for like 3 hours or something.
Have you gotten to be in the same physical room as them, or is it all just the... Oh, okay.
Just a couple times, though. They live in California, so the only time we've been around or seen each other was at the San Diego convention, and then we would hang out, like they might hang out at my booth, or one time we did a signing together where we were, and that was when we had just finished up our run on the Flash, which always feels like I'm making a pun because it's a run on the Flash.
Yeah.
Right. Waka waka. But basically, the majority of the communication is through email, though, still. So, and I think I talk to them a little less than I do Matt Sturgis, but I still talk to them more than I did with previous colorists.
Did it take you like just hours and hours to do Magog's neck? I'm looking at this page of them all like flying down where he's saying All Stars move out.
Yeah,
their attack sequence. And I'm just looking at his neck alone, not forgetting all the other tiny details on this guy. But that neck, between the muscles and then the chrome, the metal that goes around his neck with the little tiny lines and everything on there. His neck has just got like so many little minute details on it. He's got to be a pain in the neck to put together.
Pain in the neck?
Yeah, I actually did not mean it that way either. But it works. Yeah, it works as a groaner.
Yeah, it is a pain because that's one of the things I had in mind when I was saying, I wish I could tell him to simplify his costume, and It is a lot to add to one character. And another thing on a side note is that he is so asymmetrical that you can't flip him in a composition. Sometimes at the last minute, even after I've done wireframes, which, usually when I'm doing layout stuff, it's in the roughs and then the wireframe stage, primarily the roughs. But there has been times where I've gotten all the way to inks and decided to flip the composition of something or flip a pose or something. And you can't do that easily with him. You have to be very deliberate, especially if you've done all of what the metal on him. I mean, although it's shiny and stuff, I don't call chrome. I don't think that's incorrect, but what I call it is band mail. Band mail.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of chain mail, band
armor.
mail.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's like a correct term or anything, but that's just what I call it. So, but yeah, it's annoyingly time consuming. And all the layers of armor and stuff too. Yeah, he's kind of a pain in my neck too.
Citizen Steel, I want to comment on too in this sequence with his shine. I know a lot of that comes through in the colors, but do you approach how you draw him differently because of the fact that he is a character who has a different outward composition? I love because when they're swooping down, I love the look of him. That you can tell he's got a different texture to his costume. It's got more of it's a metallic, type of shiny costume. And do you approach that differently?
Mm-hmm. Let me see. It's definitely different in the inking stage, which is where I'm applying the texture and the spot blacks, because kind of the trick to rendering metal. So it's more of a render part of it than a structure thing or anything like that. But you don't want the majority of his shadows to touch an outside line. It's hard to describe when we're just doing something, audio, but it's where if normally you would have a shadow that would go right up to the edge of someone's shoulder on someone who's metallic, including Citizen Steel, you would go right up to the edge of that and then have the shadow kind of taper off so that it doesn't touch the outside of him. And it's because he's basically always being lit on the rim of him, or he has a rim lighting. So I think that's the main difference. So you don't do as many spot blacks and that sort of thing on a metallic character.
The thing I like about with Steel, and we saw this in the first issue especially, is when he's standing, he's so heavy that he's cracking the ground. And like in the first issue, they were showing in that training sequence, he was on a concrete block where everybody else was on the ground, and there's still the cracks in that concrete just because of the sheer weight of him. Those kind of details are the little stuff that I've really looked for with him and we're getting. So that's kind of a cool... Now, is that in script work, or is that something you're figuring out? How is that kind of stuff working? Just the little details, like that kind of stuff.
The first issue with him having, I don't know if you notice, or I know you guys read the comics multiple times, so maybe the next time, on issue 1, you guys will see it or whatever. But Citizen Steel has like his own special chair in the lounge room or whatever it is, the rec room that's right off of the kitchen. It's much bigger and heavier than the rest of them, because if not, he would just fall right through it. Yeah. But that is the workout sequence specifically was something that I thought of or whatever. I had just brought it up to Matt that, I think I emailed him and said, doesn't this guy weigh 800 pounds or something? Wouldn't he break, basically, if he was doing one finger push-ups, wouldn't he basically punch his finger through into the ground? And he said, oh yeah, good idea, or good call or something. And then I can't remember if he suggested the plank thing that he was, on to do the push-ups or not, or if I just did it. I can't remember, but that, that's definitely part of the collaboration, because Matt Sturgis has, I know that you weren't asking the question to get to the part of like who can take credit for that question, but just to be clear, like whenever I'm saying that I happen to think of that, the majority of the contributions or stuff that I talk to when I'm talking to Matt about is to get clarification for what he had in mind. And then I'll suggest stuff that he's totally free to take or leave. And usually he'll do something kind of in the middle where I've brought up something maybe that stimulates an idea he had. And then there's a third idea that's better. Or aside from that, like recently we designed a character together where he had some generic ideas of it. And he talked to me really early because he wasn't trying to think of anything specific. He wanted to see if I had any ideas. So we just kind of riffed off of each other. And then eventually the visual I came up with made the character more definitive instead of him having a fully realized idea and then that I just applied a visual to. So anyway, with the Citizen Steel stuff, I had suggested some stuff and brought it to his attention that he was, real heavy. And I love drawing characters like that who, his body shape I really like to draw, and let's be honest, he was not as big as that whenever he first came out. I probably added a good 80 pounds or something of muscle onto him, or who knows how much it actually weighs for him because he's metal, but you know what I mean. I added a lot to his frame and made him taller and stuff. I wanted him to feel kind of like a Colossus sort of character who was clearly larger than the other characters, because I felt visually like he would have gotten lost with the likes of with Damage, honestly, and even Magog kind of has that same sort of body structure. So I just wanted Steel to be pretty large. And when Mike Carlin saw my editor, he was like, I really like what you're doing with Steel, so keep it up. So I was like, awesome.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. Ready to move up.
Once again, I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support us. I want to remind everyone to check out David Barron's blog and Twitter. Be sure to check out FreddieArt.com to check out Freddie Williams' work. Jim, our next episode is going to be part 2 of this discussion with Freddie. So that'll be out later this week. Please check the website and the forums and Twitter and Facebook and stuff
and
like
whatnot.
that. I'll do posts in those places as far as when, but it'll be towards the end of the week, like Thursday or something. And then the episode following that is going to be the second part of our Blackest Night discussion, which we actually already recorded today with Myron Rumsey. So we've got a lot of stuff coming your way. And then next week, Raging Oscars.
Woohoo!
So you and I will record that next week. That'll be perfect because that gives you and I the week to kind of finish up our Raging Oscars. I don't know about you. This has been crazy putting that together.
Yeah. I'm like, once again, I kind of like bit off more than I can chew in my initial game plan. So I gotta make it more manageable.
Well, it's the whole year.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That was the part I was like, I was trying to do top 5s in each of my categories. And then I was like looking back at stuff over the year, and I had to go rework some of it. So it's interesting to try and pin down an entire year of comic content. So when we were just talking to Myron today, Myron was talking about just how great the entire line of product has been over the course of this year, and that how it's hard to pick and choose what books fit into your budget sometimes because of that. And that's been the hard part as far as me pinning down what was my best of the best for the year. So I'm really looking forward to that episode. But we're recording that next week and releasing it after that Blackest Night episode, and then we'll do Preacher right after that. So that's for sure what the set schedule is. Want to remind everyone about Raging Bullets 200. Raging Bullets 200 is going to be the best of DC Universe stories of all time. And it's based on our reading experiences, so please feel free to add your own into the discussion. We all have different reading experiences as far as how long we've been reading DC. So bring in yours. I'm sure Jim's are going to be very different than mine because we've had very different reading experiences. But we're going to have overlap. But we're going throughout DC history. What were our favorite storylines of all time? So I think it's a great episode 200 discussion point, and we'd love to have you participate. Remember, our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 if you want to be a part of that discussion, or it's Dr. Norge on Skype, so you can leave that. We'll be happy to have those audio comments on episode 200. Even if you just want to send in episode 200 well wishes, feel free to send those in. We also have email, ragingbullets@gmail.com or senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com if you want to get to either of us. And we'd love to have you on some level a part of our 200 episodes. So if you want to send us well wishes, we'll be reading emails, we'll be shouting out voicemails, any of those things that we get from you guys. And if you have specific things that you want to add to our discussion about greatest DC stories of all time, you want to pick your favorite and throw it up there, you have a couple of them to throw in as part of our discussion, please feel free to add those into those voicemails. We'd love to have them on the show. I'm at 200 episodes. It's coming quick.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why this is an A and B. I'm like, if I don't do this, we won't get into all the episodes we're supposed to before then. Because I want to get in all that stuff before we get to 200. So, wow. It's actually going to work. All right, we will see you guys in a few days.
Bye.